I am talking to the lead singer and tenor, Neil Donell from Chicago, the rock and roll band with the horns. Neil, how you doing today?
I'm good, Dana. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Looking forward to your show at Caesars Windsor at the Colosseum. That's April 7th, and this will be my first Chicago show, but I've grown up with your music. It looks like you've got a huge tour coming up from April 7th kicks it off, and you're going right until October. It looks like there's 70 shows here.
Actually, that schedule has been revised since probably the last time you saw it. I think last I checked, we were at about 95 shows.
What?
Yeah. Typically we do over 100 a year. In 2019, I think we were up around 115, 120. Even when we started back in 2021, officially in June, I think it was June 20th, we started in Lincoln, Nebraska. Between June 20th and the end of 2021, we managed to get in 80 shows.
So some of you guys are grandpas. How are you managing to do this many shows? Because it's quite the production you guys put on. You have a huge band, horn section, so you got to keep your cardio up. How are you guys doing this?
There are some grandfathers, and I'm not one of them. But, some of the guys are grandparents and have been doing it. The three founding members of the band, Robert Lamm, Lee Loughnane, and James Pankow, are all in their 70s now. They've been, touring for more than 50 years, 5 decades of touring. And the guys are in great health and in great shape. And for me personally, I'm a bit of a gym rat, a yoga enthusiast. I do HIIT training, all in an effort to keep myself in the kind of physical condition you have to be in to do that much traveling and that much touring every year.
I think the band their first show was in 1969. We're in 2023, so not spring
That's
chickens,
right.
But everybody knows your music, and I hear too. I'm excited to see the show because anyone I've talked to that has been to a Chicago show says that everyone really gets singing along with the band.
Oh yeah, there's so many hits, over the years. The catalog is so deep. The songs still get aired on a regular basis or put into a movie or I don't think that a week goes by where I don't hear, does anybody know what time it is, or you're the inspiration, or one of those songs on the radio somewhere. It's the soundtrack to a lot of people's lives.
I was just talking to a friend of mine telling her that I was going to interview you, and she said that there was a few songs that got her through her high school years. Like she had some rough times, and it was awesome to have some of those songs. But you're being pretty modest. You guys have broke 1 million records sold in 55 years, which that's like Beatles. Elvis has done that. Not a lot of people have, though.
Yeah, I actually saw that recently. The total was around 130 million records we'd sold worldwide. The days of actual physical product being sold to that degree are behind us now because of streaming and things of that nature. People don't buy that much physical product anymore. So, the bulk of those sales were done in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Well, I bet the people that are still buying physical copies are Chicago fans and that era.
Oh yeah, and of course, the band has continued to record and release records. We released a brand new. It was the 38th album was released in July of last year,
right.
And the first single off it, I think, got to. Now I'm thinking it was 9 or 10 on the Billboard chart. So we were very pleased with that, and it was in the show for all of last year.
So the album's called "Born for This Moment." Is that
right.
single called "If This Is Goodbye"?
Yes.
Oh my gosh!
Right.
Okay, yes, I've heard it, and I want to say awesome job because you're really hitting those high notes in that one, and the lyrics.
Yeah.
The lyrics are so heartfelt and touching. It's a really good song.
Well, it's an interesting story, actually. That song was written by the producer of the record with a couple of other writers. This is a gentleman who actually signed the band's first tenor, Peter Cetera, to his first solo record contract. So he knew about the history of the band. So some of the story in that song is about the relationships that existed between the band and mending fences and things of that nature,
Wow.
So, yeah, there's some poetic license in it, of course, but the subject matter is when we were playing it, Jimmy Pankow would always tell the audience, no, this is not goodbye, because people were seeing it as a message that the band was about to hang it up, which, of course, is not the case. The band continues to go forward and sounding, I got to be honest with you, the band is really, we just did our first tour of the year. We did a residency in Las Vegas for 3 weeks and threw in a couple of shows in California in the same time. And the band just sounds fantastic.
Okay.
Really, I'm trying not to blow any steam here, but it's absolutely true. The guys showed up after the break ready to go, and it really was a lot of fun, and the band sounds great.
Oh, yeah. Well, it doesn't sound like you guys are slowing down with over 90 shows coming up from here to October. The band, like the history of the band, they've really been through the ringer. Like you said, there's been different members in and out of the band. Lost a guitar player really early on. He passed away. They had like rumors connected to the mafia, and then had to take a 4 or 5 year break just to regroup.
Well, sort of, but the suggestion that there was a 4 or 5 year break on some levels might be true, with certain aspects of the whole thing. But I think what makes the band stand apart from virtually every other act in pop music history is they have never missed a year of touring ever.
Okay.
Like virtually every band has taken a year or two off, to either record or for various other reasons. But Chicago has never missed a year of touring. Even in 2020, with the shutdown due to the pandemic, we managed to get in the Las Vegas residency and 2 more shows. So we did get in, I believe it was 11 or 12 shows, which
wow.
I think I flew home on the 14th of March because everything was shutting down. We were supposed to go back to California to do 2 or 3 more shows, I believe, but everything got shut down. I think that Saturday night in Las Vegas, we were one of 3 acts, the last 3 acts to perform. And I think it was us, I think Shania Twain, and maybe Rod Stewart. That was it. All the other acts had pulled the plug. But we managed to get 11 or 12 shows in 2020 before we had to go home and shut down for 15 months. And
what hotel was your residency at in Vegas?
At the Venetian.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's beautiful there.
Yeah. It was our 5th year this year, 5th consecutive year of doing a residency there.
Okay. So then you were talking about flying home, and home for you is Toronto, Ontario. Here in Canada.
Yes, it still is. It's still my home. I'm the only Canadian member of the band that has ever been.
And the rest are all American?
They're all American, yeah, always.
The 3 originals were from Chicago, right?
Yes, that's where they met, in Chicago. Then everybody pulled up stakes, and the band relocated to Los Angeles, and everybody lived in one house, and this was in the very early days. And the band was, for a time, the house band at the Whiskey.
Yeah, Whiskey A Go-Go.
In L.A. Yeah.
And that's where they met Hendrix, right? Like, and
That's right. What happened was like I said, they were the house band at the Whiskey.
Yeah.
There was a buzz about them at the time. The original name of the band, they were called the Next Big Thing. And so they were getting a lot of attention. There was a buzz about the band. So Hendrix came in one night with his manager. And when he saw the late Terry Kath play, he literally said, your guitar player is better than me. But this is really interesting because it gives some insight into Jimi Hendrix's character and who he was as a person. He loved the band so much, and he was so stunned and amazed by Terry Kath's playing. He was such in awe of it that instead of sort of being intimidated by the band, he told his manager that he wanted Chicago to open up for him.
Wow.
So that was the beginning of things for Chicago. So they ended up doing a tour with Jimi Hendrix opening up for him. And then they also did a tour not long after as an opening act for Janis Joplin and the holding company.
Right. Dude, that's wild.
Yeah, and then, the history is astonishing.
Well, just last year, didn't you guys tour with Brian Wilson and his band?
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. Brian turned 80, I think it was in July when we were on tour. And that was just, so it was Brian Wilson and Al Jardine, who are 2 of the original Beach Boys.
Yeah.
Were the originals in that group. And there was, I think, 12 of them in that band. They sounded absolutely fantastic, better than the records. Honest to goodness, they were so good.
How many members are in Chicago?
The current band is now 10 members.
Oh, okay. So you're catching up to Brian Wilson's band.
The original band was 7. Yeah. The original band had 7.
Okay.
And then for a very long time there was 8, and then there was 9, and now there's 10. So yeah, there's the 3-piece horn section. There's 2 keyboard players, a drummer, percussionist, a bass player, guitar player, and myself on tenor vocals, and I also play some guitar.
And you've been singing for quite a while, choir in grade 4.
Yeah. There was no music in my family anywhere, at all. In fact, I was more discouraged from doing this than encouraged. And My father passed away in 2006. He never heard me perform live ever.
Oh.
And my mother passed away when I was touring quite suddenly in 2019, and she only ever heard me sing live on one occasion. So that it was just foreign to them. So there was no music in the family, but when I was in grade school, I felt compelled to join the school choir, which remains a curiosity to me to this day, because I'm not quite sure why. And you actually had to audition to get into the choir. You had to be able to hear pitch, and of course. And
how do they know if you hear pitch? How can they tell that?
They essentially bring you to a piano.
Yeah.
And they'll play a note on the piano and ask you to sing it back to them.
Oh, okay.
And of course, people who are tone deaf can't do that. So, if you have decent pitch, then they know that they can work with you and develop that. That choir was about 40 kids, and there was only me and one other boy in it. The rest were all girls.
And you grew up in Quebec?
Yes, I grew up in Montreal.
Okay.
Originally.
And then eventually moved to Toronto. When did you make the move? I
came to Toronto in the early 1980s, and I was on the road for a while. For the first couple of years I was here with a couple of different groups. And then I got into, which was the reason I came here in the beginning, I had begun to do some session work in Montreal when I was living there. I went to school out in Eastern Canada, post-secondary education out there. And then I came back to Montreal. I started doing some session work there. And, I had some contacts here in Toronto in the session work field, in the recording studios. I came here to get into that, and I ended up, doing that almost exclusively I guess my tally is somewhere around 11 or 12,000 recording sessions now I've done in my career.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a lot. You're lucky to have a voice.
You've heard my voice all over the place, and you just don't know it's me, because I've done that much work over the years, and I'm pretty adept at disguising my voice or sounding like other people. I've literally been called upon over the years to imitate or provide the voices of over 100 other different singers.
Well, even talking to you and hearing some of the songs that you've done, I wouldn't think that I'm talking to the person that was singing.
Yeah. I had a note last night from a guy I used to do a lot of work for, and he said it was always the most magical thing when I would be speaking to him, and then all of a sudden I would start to sing, and it was a completely different, it was totally unexpected what would come out of me, and he would always be, somewhat shocked and surprised by the sound I was producing.
Yeah, well, the high notes that you can hit and how low your speaking voice is what I was thinking when I answered the phone.
Yeah, it's funny, but I've always had that kind of range, since I was a kid. I started singing professionally when I was 14.
Oh, wow.
So I've been singing professionally for a long time.
And there's 21 top 10 singles, 11 number one singles this band has. No wonder you've sold so many albums.
It's remarkable. And you're right. I mean, sometimes I'll hear, we use in-ear monitors when we perform, so we can isolate the sound more. And it also kind of protects our hearing. So the downside of that is you don't get to really hear the feedback of the audience, how the audience is responding. Last year we played one of my favorite venues, a place called Red Rocks just outside of Denver, Colorado. Mm-hmm. It's a legendary outdoor venue. Everybody has played there over the years. And I saw some footage from some of the performance, and songs like You're the Inspiration and a few of the others, the entire audience, it was sold out. It's a 9,000-seat venue. We're singing along, and you can't really hear that, on the stage. And when I heard it, it was just like, it's magical when you hear that. I often refer to music as a beautiful distraction for however many, the 2.5 hours that they come to see us in concert, for example. All of their concerns or worries or the things that are weighing upon them, they're left outside. You leave them at home. When you come there, and for 2.5 hours, you're immersed in this other world. You forget all those things. That's the magic of music. It's very difficult not to be in the moment when you hear those songs. And oftentimes, as you mentioned earlier, they are, we remember parts of our lives, when those songs, we first heard those songs. You made a reference to somebody going through some difficult times in high school. One of the songs that people often come up to us at the meet and greet and mention is a song called Feeling Stronger Every Day.
Right.
And that's a song that, if somebody has had an illness or a difficult time in their life for various reasons, that song, the music and the lyric is very supportive and it's just good for the soul.
Off your new album, the single that came off it, If This Is Goodbye, I think that may be one of those songs as well, moving forward.
Yes, you're absolutely right. A lot of people have related to that. When the lyric is great, it means people can draw their own interpretation from it. It doesn't have a very too specific a meaning. People can listen to it, and it might mean something to you, and it might mean something slightly different to another person. And that's really the goal of songwriters, is to do that. I had a discussion with somebody just a few days ago about a song that we do called Hard Habit to Break.
Okay.
And, it goes, I guess I thought you'd be here forever, another illusion I chose to create. And, it's sometimes that means to some of our audience who maybe they've lost someone near and dear to them. And to other people, it means, maybe they've ended a relationship. And there's all kinds of different versions of that as well.
Yeah, and your voice is beautiful even on the phone. I can't wait for the show.
Thank you. Yeah, you'll really enjoy it. It's a terrific show. You'll find you'll be singing along with everything because you'll know everything that we do.
Exactly. Well, we can't wait. That's April 7th. Starts at 9 p.m. So get your tickets for the Colosseum at Caesars Windsor. Neil, thank you so much for taking the time with me. This has been a great conversation.
Oh, Dana, it's been my pleasure. It's great talking to you too.